Gentlemen, welcome to the February 16th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. It's nice to see everybody here tonight. Would like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices. And if you would, Vice Mayor Donahue is going to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we pray to you in the many names people of the world call you. We come before you tonight weary and yet hopeful. We keep thinking that this pandemic will end soon, and yet we still see signs that while we may be getting closer, we've yet to see the end. We've worked to keep our citizens and employees safe, and we know you've been there with us as we made decisions on how to encourage them to follow the guidelines. We know you have not abandoned us. Vaccinations are being distributed, and more help is on the horizon. We have faith in your wisdom. We trust in your love. Help us, dear God. Give us the grace to listen with our hearts and to act with our souls and mind, that we might offer hope to all who have placed their trust in us, and that we might do what is right, even when it is not easy. And may all who are listening tonight put into practice the words of Mother Teresa. Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Be the living expression of God's kindness, kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile. And all God's people say, Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Before we begin tonight, I have one housekeeping item. We are, ladies and gentlemen, going to pull item 8F from tonight's agenda and postpone that till our next meeting. That is the resolution approving the proposed revisions to the council rules of order and procedure. That item will not be heard tonight, so if you are here just for that, I don't want you to have to sit through the rest of the meeting. So the first item on the agenda is a proclamation for Black History Month. We have Pastor Moses Brown. Would you like to step up to the podium, please, Pastor? Thank you. So prior to reading the proclamation, I do want to acknowledge and thank Councilmember Abel. We have, in the past, I'm not happy to say, we've really not done a proclamation for this. And shame on us. It wasn't intentional. It was just nobody brought it up, and I don't think anybody really thought about it, and it just went by. And so thank you to Councilmember Abel for bringing it up. We should have been doing this. We will make this practice here on out, and my apologies to anybody that we should have been doing this all along, and it was just in the business of business, we just didn't think about it. So my apologies. So I'd like to read the proclamation. It says, whereas Black History Month affords special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our nation. And whereas such knowledge strengthens the insight of all of our citizens regarding the continuing crusade to eliminate barriers of equality for minority groups and brings about the understanding that Black History Month is an integral part of American history. And whereas, as we journey toward a more united nation, let us use this commemoration of Black History Month to serve as a reminder of the need for meaningful dialogue and shared commitment to actions that uplift and empower all. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Ross, and the rest of the council, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of City of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Black History Month. So, Pastor, I'll come down and present this to you. Would you like to say a few words?
First, I'd like to say thank you, Councilwoman Abel, for your envision. Diversity and inclusion is a practice, and it takes intentionality. And I'm glad to see, I lived in Temple Terrace for many years there in the Bluff. And this is something that I think is a big light on this city as going forward. We're progressing. So on behalf of all the African Americans, blacks in this city of this beautiful city of Temple Terrace, we'd like to say thank you, all of you, for giving us this opportunity, for recognizing the efforts that the black people and African Americans have made in this community. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Pastor.
Being here.
Councilmember Abel, I think you should come. Pastor, we'll stand up here, we'll get a few pictures.
All right.
We learn to smile with our eyes. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Clara Reynolds, who is the president and CEO of the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. Welcome, Clara. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you all so very much for the opportunity to be here this evening. It truly is an honor to be able to be before you all today and tell you all, as well as your community, about some services that we have at the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. For some of you, you may know all about the services that we provide, but for others, this may be new. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. So we do have a PowerPoint presentation, and I will hopefully be able to move through the slides. The one thing I want to point out is that the Crisis Center has been a part of the Hillsborough County community for over 49 years. So we will be celebrating our 50th birthday next year. And it is still amazing the number of folks that do not know of the services and supports that we offer to everybody in Hillsborough County. Let's see. Hopeful. Well, I have no idea. Sorry, excuse me. I was assuming it would be on. You want to check it and see? Because I would have no idea.
Welcome to the club. This
We
happens at
do
every
that to all of our speakers.
Thank you so much. If I wasn't nervous enough.
No.
Thank you so much. Awesome. All right. So our mission is to ensure that no one has to face crisis alone. And crisis sometimes makes people a little bit uncomfortable when we use that word. Crisis is strictly meaning a life's problem that needs a solution. And that is going to be different for every individual, but anyone who reaches out to us in that moment when they don't feel like they have anywhere else to go, we treat that as a crisis. And again, it's an individual issue for every person. We measure our ability to do the work that we do utilizing 4 pillars. The first one's called connecting the gateway. Can people find us when they need us? When they find us, do they have an effortless experience? Can they tell their story one time and be able to get the help and support that they need? Or do they have to tell it multiple times and become frustrated in the process? If you find us, and if we provide you with that effortless experience, we want to make sure that the staff that's providing you with that support has the services and resources that they need to be able to provide the very best that they can. And that's this normative culture. As you can imagine, individuals who are in crisis and taking crisis calls, if they don't have the support that they need, oftentimes they can't respond. And finally, as we all know, if you are not financially sustainable, you can't continue to provide your mission. So those are the 4 ways that we measure how we're doing. It's our so what. We measure it on a scale of 1 to 5, utilizing a variety of different measures, and we look at this information on a monthly basis, and we post it as well on our website. We have a commitment to trauma-informed care. What does that mean? It means we understand that when people call us, they're calling us in sometimes their darkest hour. Sometimes they've experienced things that nobody should ever have to experience. And when they come to us, we don't want to contribute to that trauma. So we try to provide the best quality services that we can in a way that is that really meets the needs of the individual. And we ask what happened to you, not what's wrong with you. So I want to start with this thing called the gateway. The gateway, very simply, is 3 simple numbers. We all know 911. Chief Albano can talk ad nauseum, I'm sure, about 911. This is a number called 211. 211 was created in the 90s by the United Way. 211 is an FCC designation, and it is available anywhere across the country. Here in Hillsborough County, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay has the license to provide that service. So when somebody calls 211 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they reach somebody who is a Hillsborough County person here in Hillsborough County that knows about the resources and supports that are available to individuals here in Hillsborough County. We have a database of over 3,000 community resources, over 1,500 actual services, and each of those services have been vetted and are required by contract to register with the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. So folks know when they call 211, they're not only getting the support that they need, but it has been vetted, and they know they can get the services when they need it. We also partner with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So if somebody calls the 1-800-273-TALK, which is the suicide hotline, that call rings directly here in Hillsborough County. So they're not speaking to somebody in Atlanta or Idaho, they're talking to somebody in their own community. We also have a couple of very specialized lines, one for veterans. It is a veteran support line. That is special because it is actually manned by veterans. In 2014, we were losing as a nation 22 veterans a day to suicide. Veterans that were calling the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay were asking, hey Clara, what tour of duty did you serve? And when I would have to say, I am so sorry, I never served, they would thank me and hang up. We were losing many, many veterans that way. So we worked to the Florida legislature, created a pilot that is now funded by the Veterans Administration as well as the Department of Children and Families and is available statewide. And what makes a difference, again, is one veteran talking to another veteran in a time of crisis. We also partner with the Children's Board of Hillsborough County to do some work in the early childhood arena, and we're also the statewide substance abuse hotline right here in Hillsborough County, serving the entire state of Florida. So again, 211 is that gateway, and if you remember nothing else that I say tonight, please, for anybody who's here or listening, please remember 211. So when we wanted to get some information specific to Temple Terrace, we wanted to start with COVID. This is how I met Mayor Ross, was by providing, it was started to be weekly, and then we moved to quarterly data about what was happening across the community. So we felt like it was going to be important for you all to know in your community, what were your community residents coming to us for? So as you can see in this graph, about around 500 individuals from Temple Terrace have called us specifically related to COVID-19. And as you can see, they were calling for several reasons, but obviously economic concerns are the number one reason. And that's the number one reason across entire Hillsborough County. So job losses, housing concerns, all of those are the top concerns. We wanted to give you some demographics, though, about all of the calls that we receive. We receive about 1,600 calls from March to August of 2020 from your residents right here in Temple Terrace. So here is some of the ages and the race and ethnicity. And as you will see, your Black residents call us at a very high rate, and that's wonderful news. We are very glad that we've been able to outreach to that community, but that also tells us that we need to do additional outreach in your community as well. You can see the types of calls. What is concerning is that purple cutout right there are the suicide calls that are coming from your zip code, and that represents 92. 92 residents that called us who were actively suicidal when they called us. And you can also see, again, by gender, more females than males. That's typical across the county, so nothing abnormal. But I was hopeful that some of this data might help you all to see that your residents, while many of them are reaching out, certainly we don't have outreach to your entire population. So I look forward to partnering to figure out ways that we can continue to get the word out for those who are in need. I also wanted to give you some additional top 5 reasons for support looking at 2019 and 2020. And as you can imagine, obviously, financial assistance is significant. Emotional support, though, is also significant. So again, we are very proud to serve your community, but we recognize we can certainly do more. The gateway, that 211, that is one thing that we do at the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, but we also run a trauma center that provides a variety of services. One of the most important certainly is our sexual assault services. For anyone out there who is not aware, if you are raped in Hillsborough County, You do not go to an emergency room to receive services. You physically come to our location at Bears in Florida. We are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to provide rape exams to anybody over the age of 13. We can provide that service up to 120 hours post-assault, and as you can see, 5% of our clients come from your area. The numbers right now that you're looking at, about 281 exams, that is very low for us. We typically do a rape exam a day. That is a reflection of COVID. I will tell you, since the beginning of December, we have certainly seen our numbers go up, and as of last week, we had done 12 rape exams in 11 days. So we know that there is significant need in the community, and the other thing we know for certain is that we see 1 for every 3 rapes. So we still have a lot of work to do, not just here, but across Hillsborough County, to let those individuals, those victims, those survivors of sexual assault know that there are services and places that they can go to receive help and support. Outside of 120 hours, we can provide additional help and support up to 120 months, 120 years in many respects. Individuals who were raped maybe in their college years and want help and support, we can provide that as well. Everything we provide is free of charge in this area, and we can stay with somebody as long as possible. Now, we've talked about suicide, we've talked about rape. Obviously, these are very heavy topics, and they don't lend themselves to just going away once the crisis is done, once that acute need is done. That trauma sticks with folks, and that's the reason why we provide trauma counseling. We provide evidence-based trauma counseling across Hillsborough County, and we have 4 locations for that. We're in North Tampa at our Bears location, out in Brandon, out in West Tampa, as well as South Tampa. We pivoted, like many organizations did, to teletherapy, and as you can see, we provided over 8,400 counseling sessions last year. That is an increase for us. Most of them were, about half of them were provided via teletherapy, and you can see about 7% of our clients come from the Temple Terrace community. We also provide some additional help and support we call care coordination. Think of care coordination as that warm handoff. When somebody calls an acute crisis and they need to make a connection to other services, sometimes it can take a little while. Sometimes it can take a while to get an appointment with a doctor, with a psychiatrist, with a therapist. We are that warm link. We will call individuals on a daily basis. We will call them every other day. Whatever we need to do to help them continue to connect to resources and supports, particularly our suicidal callers. 8% of our clients that take advantage of this care coordination come from Temple Terrace. The other care coordination that we do is called advocacy care coordination, and that is really for individuals that need assistance with rent or food assistance or something like that, and they're involved in one of our other programs, like trauma counseling, like suicide prevention, any of those other ones. And you can see about 10% of those clients are coming right from the Temple Terrace community. So we talked about Gateway and we talked about our Corbett Trauma Center. I want to touch briefly on our ambulance service called TransCare. TransCare, think of it as our Girl Scout cookies. We provide 911 basic life support in collaboration with Tampa Fire Rescue. We do sometimes have a little bit of overlap depending upon how those things work. If there's additional need, your 911 may get it. That person may actually be in Tampa. We may be able to respond. So we provide not just for the city of Tampa, but also for all of Hillsborough County, and we also provide for the county Baker and Marchman Act transports. So when an individual is having a psychiatric emergency or a substance use emergency that deems them a danger to themselves or others, law enforcement will step in, medical professionals will step in to place these individuals under a Baker Act, which is basically an involuntary commitment for up to 72 hours. Rather than placing that individual in the back of a police car, we provide that service. We put them in a van with people that are trained in trauma-informed care, mental health first aid, psychological first aid, to transport those individuals safely. We do that for children in schools. We do that for kids in the community. We do that for adults, veterans, and the elderly across the community. We provided for Temple Terrace about a little over 1,300 transports for Baker Act last year. Our total transports and 24 Baker Act and Marchman Act transports last year. Again, just to give you a sense of, from your community, how many transports we were providing. We have an additional service that I just want to touch real briefly. It's called community paramedicine, and it was designed in concert with working with Advent Health. We know that many of your residents utilize Advent Health in the case of a medical emergency. What we were seeing is chronic users of the emergency rooms, individuals that were using the rooms 30, 60, in some cases 120 times a year for their physical health symptoms. We partnered with Advent Health, and one of the paramedics, as you can see in blue, would start at the hospital with an individual and follow them home. What has been amazing is to see the number of individuals that have not been able to utilize their discharge plan or other services, so they continue to utilize the hospital. And we had one young lady who lived close to this community who had COPD, chronic pulmonary disease, and she was coming back into the hospital quite often. When we went out to the house, we saw that she had oxygen in the house, but what was really tripping her up was when she would take her oxygen to travel, to go to the grocery store, to go to the pharmacy. That oxygen tank wasn't working well, and that's what was resulting in the 911 calls. Not only that, she couldn't get to her medical appointments because she didn't understand how to use her insurance to get transportation. And finally, she couldn't figure out her medications. She was taking them at the wrong times of day. That was resulting in additional ERs. So we were able to fix the portable oxygen. We got her transportation, and then we went to a blister pack system where all she had to know is at 3 p.m., this is the medicine that you push. You take all of this medication at 3 p.m. She didn't have to worry about dosages or what they were. It was a lifesaver for her, and she went from about 30 visits a month down to 2. So those have been incredibly successful, and we're very proud of that partnership. It's a little different than home health because community paramedicine can follow that individual not just to home, but wherever they are, looking at their daily living skills and addressing any of those other issues. As you can see, we've seen a 73% reduction in ER visits and at hospital readmissions. Here are some of our partners. We have wonderful partners. We are so proud that our community has invested in the work that we do. And we also, if there's ever anything that I can do, or if you have any questions, please let me know. It truly is an honor to be here tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Clara. So I have to tell you the rest of the story here. This is the culmination of months of partnership here. During the beginnings of the COVID crisis, I was inundated with reports and data. Some of it was more useful than others, but one of the reports Clara alluded to was the report from the Crisis Center. And as I started to sift through this report, I noticed several weeks in a row the same thing, and that was that many of their increases, a disproportionate number of their increase in requests for services were coming from Temple Terrace zip codes. And so I started to dig into that a little bit, and I called Clara and I went over there to meet with her and her staff and started to dig down into some of this data and found some interesting things because I checked with our police and fire, and we had not seen an equivalent spike in calls for service to police and fire. So our residents were calling the crisis center, but they were invisible to us. We had no idea that this was even going on. And so when I started to dig into the data, I found out that most of these residents, Pastor Brown, you might be interested in this, most of these increases came from black, single mother, female tenants of our apartment complexes. That's where the spike was coming from. It wasn't homeowners, and it was way disproportionate to our overall population demographics. So with Clara's help and the city manager's help, and we got Greg Pauly involved, and we started to try to figure out what we could do to try to get ahead of this, because a lot of these people that were calling the crisis center, they don't even know they live in Temple Terrace. They just have an apartment. They don't even know that they don't live in Tampa. And so you probably noticed, or maybe you noticed, that there's been some literature placed at all of our public buildings. I don't know how effective that's been, but we've got crisis center literature at the library, at the rec center, at all the different buildings. And so this has been kind of, we've always had a partnership, but we've kind of taken this to a different level since the COVID crisis to try to reach these people. And most of it is financial. It's not even all mental health. It's financial, that these people lost their jobs, they lost their income, they don't know how they're going to pay the rent, they don't know where they're going to get food. And so we've got the city plugged into, if there's things that we can do through Mr. Polly, then when they call the crisis center, they know to, kind of get us in the loop here. So that's how this all came about and why Claire is here tonight as a result of these months of trying to get our arms around this. So I think we've kind of, numbers are still high, but they're tracking stable now. We're not seeing that, yeah.
And we'll see what things start looking like once, rent moratoriums shift and things like that. The other thing we all know too is that even though we have a vaccine that's not going to address the behavioral health issues, that behavioral health tsunami is real. So truly, as your residents, if they're reaching out looking for help and support, please remember your partners at the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. Again, 211, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anybody can call to get help and support.
Questions for Ms. Reynolds? Ms.
I want to make sure your pamphlets are at the St. Vincent de Paul Center. 'Cause that's our food pantry.
I don't know, but I can certainly reach out and Mr. Stevenson, maybe, if there's something additional that I can do.
Supported by
Your,
many.
your office has been phenomenal in helping us. Thank you so much for that. But that's a great suggestion and I'm happy to facilitate that.
I don't know.
Thank
We
you.
didn't reach out to them. I don't know if they have them on their own or not,
And
but
I
we
don't
can
know
get them.
either.
We have enough materials.
But they're a source for you as well.
Absolutely. And we, certainly we partner with Feeding Tampa Bay. Certainly we have listings of where the food distribution sites are, but I'm not sure if our specific information is there. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Other questions for Mrs. Reynolds? Clara, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
tonight.
all so much for the time
Appreciate
today.
you staying late at work and coming.
Oh, please. No, it was an absolute pleasure.
And thanks
Truly,
for all
thank
you've
you so
done for
much.
us. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is one more presentation. This one involves pedestrian hybrid beacons, which I think we're all vaguely familiar with, but they're very interesting. I've heard this. So Julie Bond is here from the Center for Urban Transportation Research, otherwise known as Cutter, and she will present. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm happy to be here to talk about the new crossings that were recently installed on Bush Boulevard. And how many of you have used the crossings? Okay, most of you, that's great. So this is a project with the Florida Department of Transportation, and I do have a presentation that I'm going to provide. And so again, I'm with the Center for Urban Transportation Research, which is at the University of South Florida, and we work with the Florida Department of Transportation and collaborate with them on several really great projects for safety. And so the Florida Department of Transportation, they did conduct studies on Bush Boulevard, and they did safety audits to determine where the pedestrian hybrid beacons would be located. And I'll tell you a little bit about the beacons in a minute. And then in addition, Cutter, who I work for, this is my part, I was responsible for a comprehensive education program that included reaching people in Temple Terrace and also in Tampa along Bush Boulevard. And so if you can see this image, it shows you where those beacons are located. And so you can see there are 4 new beacons that were installed. And so a pedestrian hybrid beacon, and I do have a photo of that, it has a push button for the pedestrian. They're going to push the button and then they're going to get a red light. Now these are different from the flashing beacons on Fletcher Avenue because I know many of you have experienced those. So that is a yellow light that's going to flash. So for the pedestrian hybrid beacon, you're going to push the button and it has a cycle that rotates from yellow to yellow flashing to red, and then the motorist will stop at the red. The ending cycle does flash red, and if the crosswalk is clear, the motorist can cautiously proceed through. So you can see these 4 beacons, and the one that's in Temple Terrace is on Overlook, which is right there by the Dunkin' Donuts by the Tampa Mall. And so that one is in Temple Terrace, and the other 3 are located further down in Tampa. But I know many of our citizens use them and drive down Bush Boulevard, so they really are an asset for our community. And then you can also see that there are many crossings for the signalized intersections. So when DOT looked at these, they wanted to place them strategically so there would be crossings where we have that heavy foot traffic and bicyclist traffic. So our education campaign was really strategic, and it reached the different markets. So we have a different campaign for motorists, a different campaign for pedestrians, and a different campaign for bicyclists. And then we reached them in different methods, and we wanted to reach our residents and commuters who are coming through on Bush Boulevard. And then also we went out to all the businesses, and I'll talk about what we left with them. So this slide shows some of our communications. This was a 2-phase project. So you may recall when the construction was happening on Bush Boulevard. So the first phase was a work zone safety campaign. And so the work zone safety campaign really gave a message to everyone driving that you need to slow down. And the campaign title, if you can see on there, was "We All Want to Get Home." So please be cautious when you're driving down Bush Boulevard because we have workers present. But it also had another component that, as you can see on the top image, it said "Coming soon." These pedestrian hybrid beacons are coming soon to our area. And so the oversized postcards were actually mailed, a hard postcard copy, to thousands of households within a couple miles around Bush Boulevard, and that included a lot of Temple Terrace residents. And we also had them in Spanish, so we had Spanish and English versions. And you can see it showed them how to use the pedestrian hybrid beacon. And then the other fun part that some of you may have taken our online quiz. And so we had an online quiz that they could take that one was for motorists, one was for pedestrians, and really showed them how to use the beacons. And we had a lot of response for that. And then the billboards, we had the work zone billboards up for several months. Now this was a 6-month campaign, so the statistics I'm showing you are for a 6-month campaign that just ended. So there's in the lower photo, some of the billboards, well, these are the work zone billboards. So those were up at first, and then we switched over to the pedestrian hybrid beacon billboards, which I'll show you. So these billboards are still up. Actually out there. I don't know if you've seen them, but they just gave a clear, consistent message to motorists, and they were placed near those beacons for motorists to stop for pedestrians. So it's just a very clear message asking them to stop for pedestrians. We also use geofencing technology, and so geofencing is when information is delivered to people traveling on the corridor or going into stores. So if you walked into one of the stores or drove down Bush Boulevard, you may have received one of the ads on your cell phone because the geofencing is within a certain area around Bush Boulevard, and then if you're in that area, you might have received one of these ads on your phone or your computer at a later time. There were a lot of impressions, over 2 million may have seen those, and then from that, more than 8,407 clicks that we documented, which is pretty high for a campaign. So that's somebody actually clicking on, and they may have taken the quiz, or they may have looked at some other type of information we have on that website. Our social media campaign was really effective too. It's a really low-cost way to reach a lot of people. For just, I don't know if you've seen, that is an image of a Facebook ad. So it's been running quite a while because we're still getting so much interaction even today. We had 4,100 link clicks just for that one ad. Over 2,400 people to date, I just looked at the other day, it's still open, have taken the quiz. And I think the importance of this is they've actually taken 5 to 7 minutes to take this quiz and learn about how to drive through the pedestrian hybrid beacons. And that's pretty substantial that people would take that time. And then if that ad, it's still going, but it has 406 likes, 114 comments, and 92 shares on it. So for a small social media campaign, that one we've still left it going and probably will for another several months because it's just so effective. And then I just wanted to include some of the feedback from the quiz because people are even taking the time to write a lot of comments. And on the quiz, the comments almost 98% of them are positive, really positive comments about how they're glad that we did this. Thank you, and they're giving us examples of why they think that giving extra crossings like that is important for our community. And then this is the campaign we have for pedestrians. And I was just out on Bush Boulevard yesterday by the Tampa Mall providing this education. We actually go out, we set up a information tent, we keep it social distance, it's outside, and we talk to the people who are actually walking on the street or biking on the street. And so you can see from the photos, we give them bike lights, we give them information, we talk to them. Again, of course, it's at a distance, and we talk to them about their needs. We have a little interview that we conduct, and we just write down their answers, and then we ask them, what can we do to help you walk and bike on this street, and what are your experiences, and are you using the pedestrian hybrid beacons? And then our enforcement partnerships have been so valuable. I really want to express how those enforcement partnerships are valuable. We did and they're educational too. So we provide to law enforcement items that they can hand out to pedestrians and bicyclists and motorists. And so they can talk to them about the importance of, stopping for that light and using the crossing. So we have some cards that we use for them. And this is just an example. So we talk about to the drivers, or the law enforcement talks to them about driving safe and how to walk wise. And we've done this with the city of Tampa for several months, and then also we have these for the city of Temple Terrace. And this is an example. So we wanted to even reach people further after they took the quiz, because it's just they took the quiz, they're interested, and so we asked them if they wanted to receive a safety item. We would mail them this safety lens cloth, so it's like a lens cleaner. And so it's just another point of contact. We ask them, to, when they get it, when they receive it, share it with their family. And so the image of the motorist is a lens cloth that we sent out. And probably about 40% of the people taking the quiz actually say, yes, send me this item. So it's another point of contact in the education campaign. And then we also have been up and down Bush Boulevard to as many businesses as we can to provide tip cards. And I have a person who goes out several times a month, and he has restocked those at all the businesses. And then he talks to the businesses, and they really do like these cards to hand out. And we have them again in Spanish and in English. And they also have a link that you can go online and take the quiz, or ask us, if you want more information. So these business partnerships are really valuable and important. And the Tampa Mall has been just great with partnerships, and that is located in Temple Terrace, because they have really allowed us to reach their customers and use their parking lot for setting up our tent, and they've been a really great partner. Now, we do have 2 public video service announcements, and I know that you're going to be putting those on your website. This one is our new Bike Walk Tampa Bay chair. Some of you may recognize him, Dave Anderchuk. So he is our chair, and he came out, and this is the one in Temple Terrace on Overlook. And so thank you to everybody who helped make that possible. And this PSA announcement is for the pedestrians. So he's walking them through. He's using the crossing and showing them how to use the crossing. And then Anita Montjoy is a FDOT engineer. And so this one is also, I'll help you put this on your website, but we're playing this also at the high schools. We have a high school education program. And so we're talking about, just engineering as a profession, and Anita is really a great role model for that. So those are both available, and she talks about, motorists using the pedestrian hybrid beacons. And then you can see in those photos, you may recognize the mayor and the chief. And some of you may be crossing there on that day. We had a successful press conference that generated some stories, and we did hold it in Temple Terrace, so thank you to everyone who helped with that. And so very good feedback on that. But that is just kind of a quick view of what we're doing. I'm here to work with you on any safety issues you want as far as making it safer in Temple Terrace for biking and walking. We also have our coalition, Bike Walk Tampa Bay, that's available to work with you on other safety initiatives for bicycling and walking. And we're looking forward to Bike Month coming up, that we know we're going to be doing some virtual events with the city too.
Thank you, Julie. Council members, questions for Mrs. Bond?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time to come and visit with us.
Great, okay.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is an appointment to the School Support Committee. There is one vacancy on the School Support Committee for a term extending from, let me pause here just for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are welcome to stay for the entire meeting. We'd love to have you. But I don't want you to feel obligated to. We're accustomed to people getting up and leaving after there, so you're not going to offend us if you do that. I know you're not here often, so I wanted to give you that. I don't want you to feel like you're stuck. So, okay. So there's one vacancy on the School Support Committee for a term extending from February 16th, 2021 until February 16th, 2024. The city's received 2 applications, one from Tracy Overdorf and one from Julie Ames. Are either of the applicants here? Seeing neither one, each council member has a ballot to vote for their top applicant for service on the School Support Committee. If you would, please make your selection and pass them over to Councilmember Chambers. They're probably wishing I had said that earlier. They all, I felt bad they didn't know that it was customary to get up. I said,
It's a customary statement at the school board meetings that they get finished with a certain point and they're like, if you would like to leave,
Yeah.
please do so
Yeah.
now. And
well, a lot of our folks are here enough that they know that, but
Yeah.
it occurred to me that these folks probably don't know how to get out of here.
Yeah.
So we have, four council members voted for Julie Ames, and Councilmember Schisler voted for Tracy Overdorf, so we just need a motion.
Okay. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I will ask for a motion to approve the appointment of Julie Ames as a member of the School Support Committee for a term extending from February 16th, 21 until February 16th, 24.
I move to approve Julie Ames for School Support Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Congratulations to Mrs. Ames, and I'd like to thank Ms. Overdorf for her application as well and her volunteerism to the city.
So nice to see new names.
It is. Next item is approval of the February 2nd, 21 City Council meeting minutes.
Moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, a 3-minute time limit is imposed on all public comments. We do ask that speakers come to the podium and state their name and city of residence. And we'd like to assure everybody that all comments are taken seriously and will be followed up on. I currently have no requests from anybody to address the council. Is there anybody here who would like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move on. First item on the public hearings is a resolution approving fiscal year 2021 school grant funding awards. And we have our School Support Committee Chair Jennifer Wells here to explain. Welcome.
Everybody, how are you guys tonight?
We're great. Thank you for your patience. We got to
Yes.
you as quickly as we could.
And I have no problem knowing when I'm done to just go.
You've been here before. You
Oh,
know
yeah.
how, you know the routine.
I do feel like it's been a while, so it's great to see you guys in person.
Good to see you.
This has happened since I last saw you guys, so I'm going to try to be cool and not have to put on my glasses, but can't promise. So I am here tonight to talk to you about the grants that we are going to recommend for funding for this school year. As you know, the last few years, we have done 2 different cycles for grants within a school year. You hear this all the time, COVID has changed things this year. So what we decided as a committee in getting feedback from our schools was to delay doing the grants in the fall. A lot of teachers just weren't ready. They were still doing e-learning. They didn't know what students they had. There was just a lot of confusion, and they felt like for them it was better to just wait. So we waited until the winter to go ahead and do the first round of grants for this year. With that being said, we did have 14 different grants that came in requesting funding from 7 different schools. So that was really great. We had a really great, variety of schools that got involved. We did not recommend funding for all the grants that came in this go-round. There's some various reasons behind that. As you guys know, we do want to make sure that we're funding grants that are going to be long-term, that are going to really have a positive impact on our students and our community. And so with that being said, though, we really took time to stop and talk about maybe why we weren't going to recommend funding so that those schools could get that feedback directly from us. We are going to do another round of grants in April that are going to be due. And so with the funding that's left, we're going to use that money, hoping that then they can look forward to next year. Another reason was there was a lot of opportunity that they weren't going to be able to have data to collect, to give feedback. And a lot of teachers were worried about that. I don't know how to tell you what I'm going to evaluate. And so again, we followed up with the schools, giving them some additional input, feedback on how they could submit grants and be successful with that funding. So we're hoping in April that we'll be able to get a lot more input from them, a lot more grants, and be able to utilize the rest of the money that we have. Again, on behalf of the committee, we are so thankful to you guys. Our community is thankful. Our schools are so thankful for the money you give us. So we are going to recommend a total of $6,303 be spent, 52 cents, sorry, don't let me forget that. But that is going to leave us with $8,396.48. Again, with the hope that in the spring, a lot more teachers will feel more confident to come out to apply for the grant. So I hope to be coming back and saying, we had so many, we didn't even have enough money. So that's our plan right now. Do you guys have any questions about any of that? Okay. All right. Nice talking to you with a mask on. I'm smiling, right? Okay, so typically you guys want me just to go through the grants. Is that what you still want me to do tonight, to just what funding we're going to do? I know you have them all, but I've always been told to kind of just say it for the record.
You would, so the public gets a better.
Okay, all right, so the first grant that we're recommending funding for is from Folsom. It's grant 2101. It's for a positive behavior intervention support. It's software that they can use to recognize positive behaviors in their school. That is a system that they're doing school-wide. We are recommending $500 for that software to be able to be utilized and implemented within the whole school. And if you have any questions as I'm going, just let me know. The next one is from River Hills, grant number 2102, being versatile with Versatiles. That's for a 4th grade class to be able to utilize across all subject areas, math, science, social studies, reading. And what this does, if you don't know what Versatiles are, is that it's an opportunity for students to do independent practice. It gives them immediate feedback. So they might be sitting there working on something. They put down their answers with the tiles, turn it over. If the picture it matches, then they got their answers right. This grant was, again, for COVID. It allows every kid in the class to have their own. So a lot of different things came in this year because of COVID. That recommended funding is $683.40. The next grant is from Piso, grant number 2105. It's called Paint Piso with Love. They are asking for supplies to create murals throughout the school. The person who wrote the grant is actually going to do the painting herself. So they just needed all the materials to be able to do it. And this is going to be, again, school-wide with the teachers, the staff, all the kids all having input about maybe famous people, inspirational quotes that they want, colors that inspire them. So just creating a lot of positive environment within the whole school. And that grant funding is $990.50. The next one is from River Hills, grant number 2106, for science and math STEM kits for a kindergarten classroom. Again, providing problem solving, scientific thinking skills for our little ones in the classroom, learning all of those kinds of processes, the science, technology, engineering, and math. And those things will allow them to work in groups to do that problem solving experience. And that funding is for $259.30. The next one is from Focus, grant number 2107. It is for Wizard of Oz stage to screen performance. They always do a performance every year. So this year they want to be able to let everybody be involved in it, their e-learners as well as their on-campus learners. And so they're going to do a digital version of The Wizard of Oz. In order to do that, they needed the rights to the play, music, and then some additional funding for scenes and props and things like that. So that funding is recommended at $964.60. And that's in the spring, so hopefully you guys will get some invitations to that. River Hills, grant number 2109, dive into chapter books, expanding access to great literature. This one was a different one for us. We had a lot of discussion on it. So the request was for CD players to be able to use for audiobooks. Well, the school has an existing huge library of audiobooks that are just sitting in the library because they're all on discs. And now with the laptops, none of them have CD players. So they have all this great stuff and nobody can utilize it. So they wanted to be able to do book studies, have groups be able to do, book clubs or, independent learning for some of the struggling readers to be able to have that listening opportunity. And they also wanted to have an opportunity to include, because most of their collection was for intermediate kids, 3rd through 5th grade. So they asked for some titles that would also include our kindergarten through 2nd graders. And that is for $663.14. The next one is from River Hills. Grant number 2110, learning through lettuce and all kinds of other plants. This is for a hydroponic system for a 3rd grade classroom. The goal from that teacher was to utilize it in her classroom for scientific reasons, observing, but also to long-term investigations, but to allow the rest of the school to have an opportunity to come in, watch the plants grow and all of those things so that it would be more of a school-wide thing and so that all grade levels could incorporate that into their scientific process. And that was for $1,000 recommended for that funding. Lewis, 2111, is called Up, Up, and Away. It's for 47 4th graders that they have. And this sounded pretty cool. I've not heard of this before, but it's a straw rocket maker launcher. And so the teacher wants to be able to use that again with the STEM process, scientific investigations, having to do STEM fair projects. He wants to be able to use this to get kids excited about those things, about how to go through and document and observe by using this straw rocket launcher. So that sounded kind of neat. And so that's for $596.75. And the last one we're recommending is from King, grant number 2114 for IB French textbooks. Last year, this particular teacher asked for some other things that she needed, some recorders that she wanted. And at the end of the year when we had shut down, obviously a lot of people didn't get to implement. And so she had come back to us at the beginning of this year saying, look, I couldn't use it because we weren't in the classroom. And so she asked for some IB French textbooks for these IB kids to be prepared more for their IB diploma exam. So this was a follow-up to that to be able to make the full class set. And so we felt like, we wanted to follow through and make sure she had all that for every student. And so that total was for $645.83. So those are our recommendations. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Mrs. Wells. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Either of you? Seeing none, I do have a question. What school was it, Mrs. Wells, at the $663 for the CD player to play audiobooks?
River Hills.
So here's my question, and you may or may not know the answer to this.
Okay.
And maybe you can help guide me on what the best way to proceed. Rather than spending $663 to buy a CD player to play the CDs that they have, what would it cost to buy a piece of equipment that would digitize this, to put it in a digital format so they would always have the ability to, couldn't we put a little more money with this and buy something that would put this on a thumb drive or something?
And we talked about that, and there were some other options. In the way that the grant was written and how they want to utilize it, they want every kid to be able to have their own opportunity to be able to listen to the CD at their own rate. So instead of it being like something that the whole class would listen to, or even a group sitting together maybe listening to it at the exact same time, they wanted it to be something that that individual child could pause, could do as they needed to be able to proceed through the book. Are there other things? Sure, I'm sure that there probably
Might
are.
run into licensing agreements if you start doing.
Yeah, and here we had all of this already, and so, it was a big discussion that we had at our meeting, going back and forth on it, and wanting to make sure that we were absolutely only recommending funding for the things that we felt like were going to be something that could be used long-term. CD players aren't necessarily, the most recent technology. We were aware of that. But knowing that they already have these CDs and it's something that could still be utilized for several years, in our opinion, we felt like it at least kind of made sense out of what they had versus trying to come up with something
Okay,
outside of that.
okay.
That answers your question.
Other questions?
I just have a comment.
Vice Mayor?
You can tell that the committee is made up of educators and parents, because to buy something that none of us are using anymore, because you're wasting another piece of antiquated, is obviously thinking outside the box. And these are all, every one of these, I can just imagine that somebody really needs this, or they wouldn't go to the trouble to write this grant. So, thank you. Thank you. I can imagine the conversations that have gone on, yeah, but I appreciate it very
And
much.
that's the thing, and it's hard to come up and say, we had 14, requests and we didn't do all of them. But we do take it very seriously. The funding that you provide for us, that you set aside from the city, we take that very seriously. And so, not that some of the other requests weren't good, but there wasn't enough information. There wasn't enough for me or somebody else from the committee to come up here and say to you guys, we feel like this is the best use of the city's money. And so that's why we wanted to go back and say, here's some feedback, come back to us again. We want to support you, but we need it to be something that's really showing the passion, showing that it's something that can be utilized, and so that we can justify that with all of you guys and with the city. It's, our money too.
Questions, guys? I think Mr. Schistler has a question.
Yes, well, not a question, it's just a comment. It's an incredible thing to watch these guys go through this, because they'll come in with a grant and they'll be, okay, and then they'll do the front and the back, they have their questions where they beat these things to within an inch of their lives, so that it's very well, a lot of due diligence goes into this, and they've done a very good job as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Seeing no questions, thank you, Mrs. Wells. Appreciate that. If this is acceptable, is there a motion to approve fiscal year 2021 school grant funding awards?
I move to approve the awards as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilmember Abel. Any comments on the motion, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. The grants are awarded, and thank you for all your work. Appreciate that.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item is a resolution adopting the 5-year pavement management plan. Public Works Director of Utilities, Troy Tinch. Welcome, Mr. Tinch. Long time no see.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Troy Tinch, Public Works Utilities Director. I'm here this evening to seek approval for the 5-year pavement master plan, or the management plan. As you'll recall, I did bring this forward to you in a presentation at the beginning of the year in January. I did address a number of questions at that time that you had. However, there were some questions that were asked that I want to kind of follow up on. One of the specific questions was regarding some of our worst rated roadways. A couple comments, I believe, from both the mayor and Councilman Schistler would have had those moved forward to this fiscal year. I did go back and look at those roadways. Most of the roadways that were yellow that were not programmed for this year have underlying issues, so they do need to, those underlying issues need to be addressed before we move forward. That said, we are going to be resurfacing 2 of the major roadways, Gillette and also Nantucket. Those were listed as some of our worst rated roads within the city. Those are programmed for this fiscal year, so we should be addressing those. The others will be addressed either next year or the year after. So for the most part, those will get done in short order. I know that was really the main question that I recall. But if there are additional questions, I'll be more than happy to entertain those at this time.
Okay, are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions?
Thank you for that answer.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Troy. Okay, if there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the 5-year pavement management plan.
To approve and adopt the 5-year pavement management plan as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Vice Mayor Donahue. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. The plan is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a resolution approving the second modification of CDBG funds for project year 2018-2019. To clarify, that stands for Community Development Block Grant for anybody who's watching. So, welcome, Finance Director Lynn Boswell will explain. Welcome, Ms. Boswell.
Good evening. It feels like Groundhog Day because I'm bringing you another modification. I apologize. The last modification that we did the last time I was here was the second time we did the first modification for 1920. This was the one I was supposed to have last time. This is the 1819 second modification. We lost the $50,000 in funding for administrative just because we just didn't have the time to pull everything together. And what this modification does is lets you know that, and also gives you the extension, or gives us the extension to allow us to go ahead and complete this project. Half has already been completed, but we need to wait for the paperwork to go ahead and get the reimbursement. So we're already ahead of the game for the 1819 CDBG, and this goes ahead and extends this grant through July 31st. Is there any questions?
Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? I have a couple of questions. So what is this project that we didn't get completed, and why? We're losing $52,000.
That was for administration, for engineering and
I know.
staff time.
I know, but why? Because we didn't get the project completed, we lost the administration money, which is $52,000. So what's the project?
The project was the University Mall project, is that correct? The University Mall, University Square, I apologize, I keep saying University Mall. It's the University Square and sidewalks, and that's what is being bid out right now. Is that correct? Yes.
University Square, the water project, and we did the water improvements, the water main around University Square.
Townhouses.
What was the cause of the delay, why we couldn't get this completed on target?
Mostly, I believe it mostly had to do with the RFP being able to bid right in the middle of COVID, to be quite honest with you. This was all supposed to have been done. We had part of it done. So usually we have to ask for all of it once everything is done. Because that didn't happen, we were unable to get that. The entire project was not completed. We weren't able to request that $50,000. It has a deadline on that one, and we were unable to make
Mr.
that.
Tinch, can you shed some light on why we weren't able to get this? Was it, I mean, there could be 100 reasons, I'm just trying to,
Absolutely. So we did complete the project. The water line project and the sidewalk projects were all completed. The $50,000 was identified to allow us to use administrative duties and functions towards that. We did spend some, but we did not spend all. And we actually found out about it a little bit later in the process. We could have used it for, say, design work and things of that nature. So now that we're aware, obviously moving forward, we'll make sure and spend all that money that we can for those functions. But some of the money was, again, spent, the projects were completed, but because it was earmarked specifically for administrative duties, you could not pull that back into any kind of a project work.
okay, so the projects have been completed.
Correct. So the projects are done, the administrative funds could not be spent for project work, actual physical work, construction of that, and things of that
And
nature.
so the reason for the modification is not that the projects didn't get done, it's
Correct.
that we didn't bill fully for administrative overhead.
That is correct. Those
Okay, that's
projects
what I'm
are-
trying to get at here.
Yeah, no, they are completely done. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to kick off a number of roadway and sidewalk projects. We have
Okay.
some money left to spend, so.
I got it. That was like digging through the fog. Okay. Thank you.
I am positive I'll probably be here again. I feel like in the next couple meetings for new CDBG money 2021, and I'll do my darndest to make sure I get all of these years not confused at all. So like I said, it feels like Groundhog Day on this CDBG.
Okay, so we have done an awful lot of modifications on this. I mean, are we winding down on this, or we got our
Yes,
arms around
this
this CDBG stuff now,
For
or?
1819, this resolution and then the county's adoption of this ordinance will complete all of that where they said, yes, then I can bill for the remainder because we do have that deadline and I can go ahead and bill. This right now is making it difficult to bill because I don't have this extension of time. And that's what this does, is give me that extension of time so I can bill and get that money.
Councilman Schiffler?
Yeah, I'm just curious, with the $50,000, that's covering administrative expenses that are already internally spent. It's not an additional loss, if you will, to the
That is
city.
correct.
This is money that would be recouped from the county to cover internal expenses to administer the grant itself.
Yes. it
Okay,
would.
so there is no budgetary impact, if you will, other than had we built it and gotten it, it would have been additional revenues that were never really counted to begin
That is
with.
correct.
Okay.
Now, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on here a second. That's not true. Because these projects, we knew we were getting so much money
What do you
in
mean?
CDBG money,
Yes.
and we now are getting $52,000 less of CDBG money. So we didn't budget that in, did we? That's not correct, what you just said. That can't be correct.
I usually don't budget the whole thing because I don't know when this is going to be done, so it's not going to be on the budget. I usually wait because I don't know what their timelines are. Sometimes
Okay,
their timelines-
okay, you're throwing
Sorry.
too much fog in the air.
Sorry,
It's a
okay.
simple question.
Alrighty.
Did we budget in our money, our budget, for that $52,000, or was it supposed to be included in what we were gonna get from CDBG?
No, I don't. I did not budget for that.
So there is a loss. Am I reading this wrong?
No,
What I'm saying is, we have X number of dollars that we spend internally through Lynn's efforts and secretarial and all kinds of stuff that's in the budget, okay? And that's covered under general fund revenues throughout the year. The CDBG, as I understand it, the grant for the CDGB covers the work that's going to be done by contractors and subcontractors to do these initial projects. The CDGB grants that they go after are not necessarily known during budget times, but that there's an additional that they could get back to cover the administrative.
I don't think that's correct. I mean,
That's
I'm not.
that's what I'm trying to clarify here.
I don't think that's correct. I think if you look in our budget, you'll see projects that are earmarked to be funded by CDBG. And if we complete these projects and then we build the project, am I right, Troy? If we build the project back to CDBG and they say, well, no, you can't get access to that $52,000 because of whatever, that's money we eat. I mean, if you go in our budget, it's earmarked to be funded, right? Because I remember we talk about these sidewalk, this is what we're gonna do with CDBG money. We're gonna do these sidewalks, we're gonna do this and that and the other. It's not, so I don't wanna beat the horse to death, but I think there is
That's why I'm asking.
Well, she's saying she doesn't necessarily put the full amount, that she may or may not get the full amount, so
The
it might not be as.
The administrative has been off and on, the last time we did an administrative, I would have to say would have been about a couple years ago. They don't always include that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It really is at their whim. Therefore, it isn't a loss. I'll take it out of the 130 fund, which is where that is, but I only take out what we actually spend. If we're not spending out of the 130, the engineering cost, that's not coming out, or it's not the loss. It's what we would normally do in our normal course of business, had we not had the CDBG or any of that.
Okay. Well, we don't have a choice in this anyway, so I don't want to beat it all up. Do we have a motion to approve the second modification of the 2018-2019 CDBG funds? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Before you make a motion, if you could possibly include in that motion some permission to correct typographical errors that I'm noting in this. They are not substantive. It's just words, a word that may be misspelled. For instance, in the first whereas clause, where it has subsection A, it has something that says exceeded with a T. I think that is probably exceeded or exceeds, something similar to that. That's the kind of thing that we've brought up before that we would like to put to you again. This is getting off the topic, that to allow the clerk and the city attorney to correct typographical errors, but since we don't have that yet, I'm bringing that to your attention now to please include in the motion that we can correct typographical errors.
I understand. I'll make a motion.
Okay, please do.
I move to approve the resolution, the second modification of the CDBG funds for project year 1819 with permission to correct typographical errors.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. The second modification has been approved.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing administration to terminate participation in Evolution Healthcare Employee Healthcare Insurance Program. City Manager Stevenson.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you this evening is a resolution terminating our relationship with Evolution Healthcare to provide health insurance for our city. Last December, we were given permission to execute this agreement to provide health care, dental, and vision to our employees and retirees. Since the inception of this program, the plan has experienced numerous issues with customer service, and the non-existence of provider network has posed some serious concerns that could not be tolerated. The resolution before you terminates the relationship with Evolution Healthcare for the providing medical and dental and vision coverage effective yesterday, February 15th. Thank you, sir.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council members, do you have any questions for the city manager? Vice Mayor?
Please walk me through the portion that says we were going to be self-insured. So tell me how that, where are we in that financial package? Or, you know, where did the,
Or not? Not anymore.
We will not be self-insured anymore.
we won't?
The next item on the agenda picks up what we're fixing to do.
So we're not liable for anything that's happened?
Oh, no. We are in fact liable for some of those bills. There'll be some cleanup that we need to do here in the future with Evolution. We are by no means free and clear of paying some of those bills. We do owe some bills. So we don't know what those are yet, but we are in fact moving towards getting that resolved. So it will be under the program. I mean, the bills that we're paying will be under the program that was explained to us when we went on board with Evolution.
So am I correct that we would be obligated to pay whatever medical bills from the time we went to Evolution until now that occurred under the plan? I mean, whatever the period that we were under Evolution, we're on the
That's
hook
correct.
for
That's
those.
from January 1st to February 15th.
Right.
Yes.
But that's a finite number because it's all past.
It is fast, but it's big.
I don't know.
Well-
Yeah.
I'll be shocked if it's not. We've had some major
I don't know.
accidents.
Well, we have.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is what it is. I guess what I'm looking for is
Yeah, but the boating accident, if that's what you're talking about, that doesn't go under health insurance anyway. That goes under, that's a separate insurance. If you get in a car wreck, that's not your health insurance, that's your car insurance.
That's a big relief to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I
So
understand
if,
why we're doing this. I was just wanting to know if we had an idea.
if that's what you had in mind,
Yeah, that's
that's
my-
covered by, yeah, yeah.
I don't know that we know that number yet, but certainly, I think we will be okay with, the claims that we've had. Quite honestly, part of the problem that we had with this program, and what was sold to us, was that, we had a provider network, if you would, and that's been a problem. So we've had a lot of, including myself, that couldn't get in to see the doctor because of the insurance problems that we were experiencing. So we do have some cleanup to do, but I feel confident that we can get through it. So
Good question there. Councilmember Abel.
I would like to say, I really appreciate how quickly the city was able to pivot when we found that this provider was unable to serve us the way that we needed to be. But I am interested in what that cleanup is when you have those figures. I would want to know what the impact was, if we could get that information.
sure, we'll be more than happy to provide you with that information.
Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. Other questions? Okay, is there a motion to authorize city manager to terminate the participation in Evolution Healthcare?
Move a resolution to terminate the participation with Evolution Healthcare Program.
Second.
Motion and a second, Councilmember Abel. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays? Very good. Next item. Mr. Stevenson is related. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with United Healthcare for city employee health insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a result of the previous resolution terminating the relationship with Evolution, the one now before you is authorizing the execution of an agreement with United Healthcare to provide health insurance, dental, and vision to our employees and our retirees. The plan offered by United contains the same plan offerings and zero cost increase for that to that of 2020. The cost savings anticipated with Evolution will not exist under this plan, but the current budget does include sufficient monies to cover the plan offered by United. When we built budget in last October, we were not in doing business with Evolution, so we had built the budget around a United Healthcare plan with a 4% increase. After discussions with United, they've been, gracious enough to want our business back bad enough. They are giving our plan for 2021 at the cost that we were paying in 2020 with zero increase. So that includes the dental, health, and the vision as well. That was part of the deal that we cut with them to bring the whole package back to them. So they have offered that. The effective date of that plan is February 15th, the same day that we discontinue doing business with Evolution. So we have lost no traction. We have to get people re-enrolled, which is in the process right now, and it's going rather smoothly. So this gets us back into business with a typical health insurance plan for our employees and our retirees.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member, questions for city manager? On this item? All right. If not, is there a motion to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with United Healthcare?
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with United Healthcare for city employee health insurance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Mr. Stevenson, the resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Last item was supposed to be 8F, and I pulled that at the beginning of the meeting. I just want to share with you why, so I don't want to leave everybody mystified, scratching their head, driving home, wondering what's going on. Several conversations have occurred over the past few days between city attorney, city manager, myself, and it started with me because when we put in some language in the proposed rules, we had two things going on in the same paragraph. There was one item that talked about the declaration of an emergency, and then in the same paragraph, it talked about passage of an emergency ordinance, which is not the same thing, because we can pass an emergency ordinance on something without being a declared state of emergency, and vice versa. So what started out as just a bulleting issue, because I called and says, hey, this needs to be its own section. We've got two things smooshed together, the technical term smooshed, right? So, in looking at this, we had some questions, all of us, because we have a couple of state statutes that address this item, and then our city charter, and then the city ordinance that we passed recently, back in October, I think it was, and now the rules. So there were a couple of areas where we wanted to ensure that everything was aligned, that the council rules that we were proposing are aligned with the charter and aligned with the ordinance and aligned with each of the statutes, because there's more than one statute, and they don't quite say the same thing. So everything's got to be aligned. And so that's the reason it was pulled this afternoon, was because we said, look, let's just put this off for a couple of weeks and make sure that everything is aligned, because passage of an emergency ordinance is one thing, declaration of emergency is another. We want to make sure everything is aligned. So that, there's no big smoking gun here. That's the only reason it was postponed, just so everybody knows. Right? Council business, carryover council business from previous meetings. Anybody? New business and board reports. Councilmember Abel.
I have heard some concern about speeding on Whiteway.
About what? I'm sorry.
Speeding on Whiteway. And I walk there a lot. My daughter bikes to school on that way, and people have been also, out besides me, talking about concerns about people going 45, 50 on Whiteway. And I was wondering what sorts of things are being done to look at that, or if we can study how we can reduce the traffic or the speed on Whiteway that we've been seeing.
That would be a question best addressed to the police chief. We hate to put him on the spot like that tonight, but it's certainly appropriate if you'd like to schedule him maybe at our next meeting or a future meeting to come and give us like a general overview of traffic enforcement in the city. I think that would probably be appropriate. Does that sound reasonable?
We do have a process.
There is a process, but I'm not sure everybody would know it, though.
Yeah, let me get him to prepare something so that.
Yeah, yeah. Is that satisfactory?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Any other new business or board reports?
I have an announcement. I don't know if it goes here or not.
Vice Mayor, go right ahead.
A project in the city, and also have a request. The first one will be council business, so I'll read that. I have been getting a lot of phone calls from businesses about the sign ordinances, and I talked to Mr. Pauly about it and whatever, but I think we might need to sit down. Maybe goal-setting session is not the perfect place for that, but, we occasionally, when I sat on the MCEB and now Mr. Chambers has taken my place there, there were people who would come before the code board, and sometimes you would just think, wow, this is a rule, I mean, if you really start looking into it, there are some rules that obviously we really are happy that they're in our city code, but there are others that, you just might want to look at. And right now, I can't even begin to give you an example, but I know that y'all had a meeting, MCEB had a workshop. Was anything like that discussed, or am I?
No,
Now that I'm not there anymore, I don't know.
no, that workshop was mainly an orientation for new members
Oh, okay.
to the board. There are quite a few new members on the board. So it's just procedural, how it works, how there's a fine.
Okay, then what I'm asking for is one where we can sit down with code and say, how are we seeing this, is this becoming a perpetual problem that our citizens are running up against? Is this a problem? Do we still need to have this one on the books? I mean, I realize the book is that thick, right? So I don't want to,
I would,
You know.
I would submit a couple of thoughts on that, and I know Mr. Stevenson wants to respond as well. First of all, any council member, any of us, can propose revisions or the enacting of a new ordinance or the elimination of an ordinance. I mean, we can move to abolish an ordinance that we think might be outdated or revise it, or, so any of us have that. So I would suggest, first of all, have some specifics, you know, which
Yeah.
code do you think needs to be revised, and then which one. I will tell you, the sign ordinance was recently revised twice, if I'm not mistaken, in the past couple of years. And sign ordinances are sticky. They're like noise. They're sticky.
they are.
And the other thing I would offer that I suspect is what Mr. Stevenson, maybe not, is that I'm not sure us getting with code enforcement officers is appropriate. I mean, we make the laws, we make the ordinances, but how they're empowered to enforce them, but we can't tell them, well, we want you to get hard on this one or soft on, you know, we can't do that.
No, and I would never suggest that. I guess, I just didn't know if there was an avenue for us as a body to go through with code and say, you know, are they seeing things that we might need to look at or that they may recommend? You know, this one just doesn't, it's a problem all the time because the world has changed. Okay, if that's not the case, then we'll just keep taking them as they come. But I just think, I don't know when the last time we looked at those to see, or when you looked at them. I mean, who starts this ball rolling if it's not us? You know, is it code or?
No, going to code enforcement, that's the wrong venue to go to. I mean, certainly if there are changes that you want to propose to any of the ordinances, it could be parking on the street. You can certainly run that through my office. We'll get with the people that we need to get with and department heads. We can certainly propose a change to the ordinance back to council. One of the things that we can do, and certainly if you want to start proposing a change to parking on the street, for instance, I'm going to get with the police chief, we're going to get with Public Works, and we're going to get with the department heads that need to put some input in this so that we bring something back to you that makes sense. Certainly, there are a lot of ordinances. That book is full of things that we can question. There's certainly things that we can change that need to be changed, and we do that occasionally to update the code. Signs are a sticky venue, just like the noise is, and it's one of those type of ordinances that we take a lot of pride in, because you do notice the difference between Temple Terrace and Tampa or the county. And we're sticklers about what's in that code. Now, that being said, is we get a lot of complaints sometimes from an individual that says that code doesn't work for me. Well, the way that my office looks at this is, this has got to not work for a lot of people
Yes.
before we start bringing a change to
Right.
council.
And that's my point, is are we seeing something that seems to be perpetually an issue and there's no easy solution for it? And I sure as heck do not think that it's my job to say to you as a council person, hey, I want you to look at this.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if you have an issue that you're getting a lot of complaints on, or you're getting a lot of comments on, and certainly it's one of those things that may not work for an individual, but it may work, or it may not work for one person. It may work for a whole bunch of people.
Oh, yeah.
So
I agree with
those are the things that we look at. But, you know, taking it through the code board, it's certainly one of those things that we can look at and say, are we getting a lot of complaints? Are we getting a lot of violations? But violations you get on sign ordinance are usually dead on. I mean, they need to be looked at. So certainly we can start that conversation if you have some specifics in the code. We can start that conversation with our department heads and find out if there's something that is consistently been a problem. And I do know that there's a couple things that code deals with all the time. But it is one of those things that has been set in policy by previous councils that we want it this way, okay? If this council wants to change something, we're open to looking at, making a change. But again, a collective change. We get a lot of people that complain about, an individual complains about, speeding on White Way. One person complaining about speeding on White Way doesn't precipitate us to do much other than maybe throw some devices out there and see if in fact there's an issue, so. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to know how, if we needed to have a workshop but that's fine. If you don't mind me just bringing you.
We can call a workshop, council's.
Well, I would say that that depends on what you propose. I mean, if you go through the code, the book, and you say, well, here's 3 or 4 specifics that I think are outdated or need to be revised, and you bring them to us and say, hey, under new business, say, here's 3 or 4 things I think we should talk about. I can think of one that's been proposed that I think is something we should talk about, and that is the garbage cans up from the street but in front of the garage door. I think that's something that has been brought to our attention that I think is legit. We could talk about that. I know you, but if you have a couple of things like that you brought to us, then maybe now we have enough to have a workshop. But if it's just one change, then maybe we just direct them to make the change in a regular meeting. So, I'm sorry,
No,
Mr.
that's all right.
Chambers, you
On
have the
this,
floor.
I was gonna say, instead of us trying to figure out the codes, can we ask the city manager to ask the code enforcement director and his staff, are there codes that they're enforcing that they think are antiquated or need to be changed? Not just because I'm tired of getting yelled at, but I mean, things that, to talk to the staff, the people giving out the tickets, they, a lot of times those violations never get to the code board because they get satisfied. So to ask staff.
And we do have an informal list of problems in the code. Mr. Baroni and I have this conversation all the time, and one of them is residents parking on mulch versus a hard surface. That's one of the things that we need to kind of decipher. But again, we've got a couple individuals around the city, not a lot, but a couple individuals around the city that continue to have that problem. We issue a notice code violation, it gets taken care of for a while, and then they're back to parking on mulch. Our code doesn't allow that. And yet, we've got 2 individuals out of the whole city that continue to violate that code, and the termination needs to be done on my end. Is that really something that we need to bring to council to change? Because
But that's what I was getting at. If there's something that we know the officers are saying, man, I hate writing this ticket because, this just doesn't make any sense anymore. They're the ones that I want to know from. I mean, good grief, I'm sorry. We all have that book, it's that thick. I'm probably not going to go reading it in my spare time.
Yeah, but we've had, I've been involved in code board before council for 12 years since I first started the code board. And there's been several times when issues have been identified and floated to council. Back when I was on the code board, we've revised a number of them. The sign ordinance, I think, has been revised twice since I've been around. Dog barking, there's been noise. We've tried to tighten up on noise because there's been a number of code revisions since I've been around. So I think that already is kind of, I don't know, if you have something, yeah. Yeah, I don't think Mr. Baroni's bashful about telling us something, yeah. But we can, continuous improvement. If you have a code that you say, wait a minute, this doesn't work anymore, but I think Mr. Stevens' point is good. If it doesn't work anymore for one person
Absolutely.
out of 26,000.
And I like that we don't look like Hillsborough County
Yeah,
and Tampa.
yeah.
So don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything more on this topic, Mr.
Not on this
Councilmember Abel?
topic, no.
Not, okay, well, anything more on this topic? Councilmember Abel?
I just have a board report from the Affordable Housing Board. I went to a meeting, virtually, on the 8th of February, and they distributed a flyer about housing assistance for both mortgage assistance and rental assistance. And I passed that flyer along, and it went to Marketing Communications Director Lori Hayes, and she put it out. But I just wanted to make sure I said it in a meeting so that everyone on council would be aware if anyone asked them, and so that the public and anyone listening would know that there is assistance available, and that can be found by contacting us or looking on the Facebook page or any of the other venues that it was released on.
Good idea.
Good. Other new business board reports?
I just have an announcement from the Arts Council. Is this the
Vice
time to
Mayor?
do it? Okay. All
Vice
right, well,
May I go first?
Yes.
'Cause it ties into your announcement.
okay. Yeah.
Chambers.
Thank you. Due to COVID and some other issues, Art en Blanc, which is a big event that the Arts Council does, has been postponed from its date to a date that we're not certain yet. So, in that now,
So the bad news first and then.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
All right, so hopefully some of you have been able to go into our public library and see the new mural that is, it's huge. It's all in the back of the checkout counter. And that was funded by the Temple Terrace Women's Club and the Rotary Club of Temple Terrace. So they hired Terry Claren and Anita Long to paint that mural. Now with that, the Arts Council now is pairing up to turn that mural into a 3D, if you will, mural. And the idea is that canvases will be provided to citizens who are interested. And then you will create a book cover. So I'm going to show you some examples here. Now, if Mr. Chambers tells me that this one, he already read this one and it doesn't work. Okay, so here's a new book, How to Play Golf, okay? Here's one called Scout Park, all right? Now, these books don't exist, and the good news is, here's one, The Old Bat Tower, okay? So the idea would be that citizens would take the canvas, create a book cover of some iconic location in Temple Terrace, Lewis Elementary, 101, or whatever. Okay, you use your imagination. And then return those to the library, and then if they are approved, obviously we have to have final approval, the Arts Council would then mount those on that mural, making it into a 3D. So some of the people in the mural will then be holding those books, okay? There is an application process and there is a price. It's $15 per canvas, and you will be putting that out on Facebook and putting in a bunch of different places so people can see how to apply. I think I don't think we have more than about 20, so it's not like, everybody who signs up tonight will get this thing done. The deadline is, I believe, March 15th, so you have time to get it, draw it, color it, whatever. I myself will probably not be drawing one because, as I've already told people, I can only draw stick people. So unless I make a book cover that says how to draw stick people, I probably won't be doing one. But anyway, again, we've all been trying to do something to lift everyone's spirits. And so any little project we can do like this is something that is, I hope people will see it as the gesture that it's been issued in. So thank you for letting me announce this particular one.
Vice Mayor, I have one piece of new business to inform the council of. As you know, for some time now, I've been talking about construction of this trail, the east-west trail between basically here in the back of Yangling. It runs parallel to Fowler Avenue. I've met with the MPO staff several times. The city manager and I have met with them trying to promote this. They had agreed some months ago to fund the study, which is the preliminary step towards construction. In the meantime, after having several conversations with a lot of people about this, the DOT has contacted us. And so we had a meeting, the city manager and I, last week with the MPO staff and members of the Florida Department of Transportation. This is good news. FDOT says, we like the idea, here's what we want to do. We want to build this trail and bake it into the Fowler Avenue reconstruction project, which goes much further. It goes all the way from 275 to I-75. So instead of just getting one leg, we would go all the way from 275 to I-75. It may or may not go along the right-of-way that we first envisioned. They may put it within the right-of-way of Fowler Avenue somewhere, don't know yet. That study is commencing. FDOT is about to start that study now. And the good news is the trail goes further. Even better news is they pay for it, right? Another good thing about this is this project is already an established priority and is already approved for funding and backfilled by the federal government. So the risk of it being knocked off the table is less because it's approved all the way through the federal government. So this trail might become a reality even better than we envisioned. And part of this also is a trail down 56th Street from Fletcher to I-4, because that street also is due to be redone. So that would connect all the way vertically and horizontally. And again, this is all FDOT money.
Make a big impact.
And during this conversation, Mr. Stevenson and I brought up while we had them at the meeting about, well, while you're doing this study, we would like it baked into this study to put borders at the entryways to our cities, to our city. And rather than going back after this roadway is constructed and trying to figure out how to put a landscape border sign or some type of monument, we want it baked into the study from the beginning. And they says, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll be happy to do that. So, very productive meeting. Now, keep in mind, these things don't happen overnight. I don't think Fowler, what'd they say, 2023, 2024?
That'll be here before you know it.
Yeah. So, I mean, these things, but it wouldn't have happened overnight even if we'd have gone the other way. So,
At least there's funding, and they're gonna start working on the plan.
yes.
They'll incorporate us with.
Yes, and that may help resolve our border issues that we've been talking about as well. So this is all good news. So,
Very good news. Thank you.
yes, it is. Any other new business? City managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got just a couple things here. I have the need to be out of town next week. I will be returning to the office on March 1st, so I will be here for the next meeting. In my absence, I've asked Fire Chief Kemp to be acting city manager. I'm available by phone and limited email, but certainly if there's something that comes up that he needs to get hold of me, my phone's on 24/7. So I do appreciate the time off. I just got some additional business I need to take care of.
That's Monday to, when do you?
I will be leaving Saturday, so I will put him in charge Saturday, Sunday, and then the entire week of next week.
Okay.
So, the other thing is we don't do this very often, but there's been a lot of backstage work being done on our website. I know you can certainly see the change to our website. Mr. Nathan Bunham is our part-time person that is working kind of behind the scenes with Ms. Hayes on a lot of this stuff. He's been very instrumental in putting together some of these little short videos that are now being delivered on our TV channel, as well as several of our buildings on our closed circuit, if you would. All that is a result of Nathan's efforts, and certainly Lori kind of pushing him in the right direction. But Nathan has been very creative with a lot of stuff, and certainly has brought a lot of, if you would, a little bit of pizzazz to some of our stuff. If you remember correctly, our TV program was just revolving slides, and if you sat there and watched it, you kind of fall asleep. Now there's some motion. There's some interactive videos that the department directors are starting to provide. I know that he's got plans to do a lot more. He loves the idea that we now have a drone that he can take pictures of and use that. And I know that our police chief will help him do that. But I just wanted to bring him face forward here so that you guys, when we talk about Nathan behind the scenes, you know who Nathan is. Maybe take a mask off, let him see your face.
Good job,
Poor guy's-
Nathan.
Is the poor guy still in the hallway?
I'm sorry?
Is he still in the hallway?
He's still in the hallway. We haven't found a permanent spot for him yet, but I think he's comfortable there. He kind of, he has an opportunity to see everybody coming and going. So,
Okay, well, it works for you, it works for me.
but Nathan, again, we don't get a chance to thank Nathan and the people doing this backstage space. We do appreciate his effort. So that's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
That's it. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. City Attorney's report.
I've got nothing tonight. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other comments? Any other business to come before the council? Council members, staff? If not, we are adjourned.
Turn off your mics.
Thank you.